This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment Podcast. And that remarkable giggle at the start belongs to my next guest, who I am so excited to introduce to our community. This is Bin Sparks, and she is the founder of Sparks Legal Recruitment, quite literally making sparks fly. Welcome to you today, Bin. How are you?
Thank you so much. What a wonderful intro. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you very much, Leisha. Thank you.
We have to pay homage to the incredible tribe that we're part of, which if you haven't listened to one of these podcasts before, I have had other people on. It's the Women Unleashed group, which we joined March 2020, I think it was.
Just as lockdown started. And it's been such a support network, because particularly someone like myself, I just started out, the pandemic hit, and I didn't know where to turn. I felt lost, confused. My friends were in normal jobs. There wasn't anybody that I could really align that kind of conversation with. So for me, it's just been like a crutch, really. It's really helped me.
And I think it's really important, actually, as we record this, there's a bit of a narrative going on in certainly on LinkedIn around sort of pods versus tribes. And I think it's really important that for anyone who's cynical about what must seemingly be like a tribe out there, we are genuinely friends. We really support one another. We don't do it commercially. I don't think any of us have benefited commercially. This is all about true friendship.
Yeah, actually, that's right. I've not really thought about that before. And it's just like, if there's any little thing to do with business or personal, I don't ever feel like I can hold back. As you know, we've discussed everything from HRT or Recruitment Matters. It's just been, and everyone's got something to input, and it's really positive. There's no negativity there, which I really like.
No, there's not. And it's if you're listening to this thinking, why on earth are we talking about it? I think it's really important to look at the people around you, and you are a manifestation of the people that you spend time with. And very often that isn't your family. It isn't your chosen friends. It can often be work colleagues or communities. Certainly that's become a real thing over the last 2 years. And I think it's being non-judgmental. I think it's about genuinely supporting one another and praising and cheerleading one another without it being sort of just a virtue signaling thing. I think we genuinely care about the success of each other.
Yeah, that I think is really important, because I think, having worked in the corporate world, like you're often put in situations where people don't cheerlead you or aren't positive about you. And this is what I found with this group. It's really positive, and I've sort of moved to wanting to be around people like that. It's great to surround yourself with positive people, and it does rub off on you. I think it's a really happy place to be. And sometimes, very occasionally, I've been in situations with other women where it's maybe been a little bit bitchy, but I've never picked up on that either, which I really like.
There's no toxicity, and I think there's no, although we're all competitive within our own worlds, we're not competitive with each other. We're just happy to, and we have talked about absolutely everything. I don't think there's anything we've ever but sometimes there needs to be a censor warning, certainly with particular members of the group, but we'll tag you on the post. No, I think it's remarkable. And actually, I think it's a really nice introduction to what we're going to talk about, because I think you're right. And I think for a lot of people listening, certainly those who've been in recruitment some time, we have a lot of leaders listening. So thank you for joining our podcast. That, you came from a corporate world. So let's put some context around, you mentioned that you just set up. So talk us through your corporate journey and then why you decided to launch an independent business.
Yeah, so I worked in television, actually, bizarrely, and studied media, and then decided to make that move across to recruitment. So it was a purpose move, and I trained with a large corporate agency for 3 years, and moved to another more niche professional services agency, and I stayed with them for over 14 years. So I've seen the big corporate world. They're very different agencies, but I learned a lot. I don't regret it. I think I had great training. It was great, but I found, particularly when I had children, everything changed, and the dynamics and what I wanted, it was just never quite right. So I hadn't planned to set up by myself, but it was circumstances, and it's really been the best thing I've ever done. So I'm just so glad I made the leap to being independent. Yeah, I could never go back to that anymore. Ever.
Sorry, I was going to say, I just want to pick up on that, actually, because I think I didn't necessarily realise that, but that's what we clearly have in common now. I launched my business back in 2005. Although I wasn't working for corporate, I would say that, at the time, Fee Farah Jones was probably the most forward-thinking company that you could have worked for. They were talking about well-being back in 2005. Who else was doing that? But they couldn't accommodate flex working for a parent. And I think, that's unites us now, that so many companies, when you get to a certain scale and size, it becomes much more challenging to create flexibility for a working parent. And maybe there's a bit of resentment, I think, that they don't want to have that knock-on effect. Well, so and so in that office, they're going at 3 o'clock to pick up the kids. Why can't we do that? It's I think it's probably a very common problem for a lot of people, and that's not just mums. I think that'll be dads as well.
Well, interestingly, I find with lawyers, that female lawyers that come and register with me, that's the biggest thing I hear over and over and over again, is it was different after maternity leave. It was never the same after maternity leave. A lot of them actually, what I've noticed a bit of a trend recently, make the move to leave the company they were at before maternity leave, because they know if they return, it's never going to work out. So they'd rather start a new 4 or 3 day job somewhere new, so they don't have that expectation, and I've noticed that happening a lot. So yeah, I think it's everywhere. I think it's a bit of a struggle, and although the firm I was at were flexible and did try to accommodate me, there were other dynamics that weren't the same. My targets were still full-time, all those sorts of things. So for me, it was just the best thing. And I think, and I know you'll relate to this, it was working around the childcare was just so hard, so hard. And my husband's job is very demanding, so it was all on me, to do everything, and it was tough.
Yeah.
God, I mean, you did it single-handedly, which I can't imagine, but it is really tough, isn't it?
Not when they're little, as they've got into teenagers, which I'm not sure that's any easier. But that's a topic for another day. Maybe we can reverse and you can interview me using your degree. But I want to stick with this now. We'll definitely come on to what the other part of the conversation. But let's stick with the working parent thing, because I do think, observing you, and obviously everybody's going to be clicking on your profile now to see how you make sparks fly in the legal world. But you do seem to have achieved work-life balance with your family and with running a business. So tell us about, is that a veneer or is that the reality? Have you actually created a balance? And if so, how?
Yeah, it is tough. So I have my kids in breakfast club every day. So I stop that. So I do get up and start working at 7 every day. And then I drop to take them to breakfast club, come back. And then I just kind of work, and I've planned my day around them. I have struggled with time management, I must be honest, but I've now put it into little blocks, and I set little alarms, and I try to set little reminders so I can move through my work quickly. And I must admit, after they go to sleep, I do work late quite a lot. But I think that's, often that's the best time for me to speak to candidates. But come the weekend, come Friday, I don't. I do the odd bit of posting on LinkedIn, and I don't work there until Sunday night when I do all my planning. And then it's completely just me and the kids. I devote all my time to them then. So I try as much as I can. And I think they're quite mature for their age. They do understand, like, if I'm working at night, why I'm doing it, and they've adapted. But just to be able to take them to school, wave them off in the morning, that's just priceless, isn't it?
Of course it is. And I want to bring back in something that you just said about your sector, because if you're listening to a recruiter and you're recruiting, whether it's engineers, whether it's lawyers, doctors, whatever, how do your clients respect that? So let's say you've got a client that is demanding and wants to speak to you when you're on that school run, or you're sat having dinner with the kids. Do you think that your behavior is having a positive effect on the expectation of your industry, and do you think you're therefore educating your client in terms of creating work-life balance?
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because I very rarely tell them. I very rarely mention to clients that it's awkward, or it's not a great time or something. But I recently went away for 2 weeks, and I did email all the clients that I had, like, some work going through, and said, I am away, I will be on email, so please don't think this is going to affect services, but it would be difficult for me to speak to you on the phone. No, they were all great about it. There was one very tricky job going through, and actually the HR manager was brilliant, and I know she was frustrated, but she was fantastic. They just dealt with it. They understand.
Because what you did there was you managed expectation. You are entitled to a holiday, which looked Fabulous, by the way.
Thank you.
You could be a tour guide. Was it Thailand?
Thailand, yeah, Thailand for 2 weeks, yeah.
The food pictures particularly looks amazing. But that side, I think it's about expectation, and I think it's a really important message to anybody listening who is either sat as the working parent going, this is just really stressful, I'm really struggling, or whether you are actually the end user client that's using a recruiter that's a working parent, or whether you're an employer. I think it's about managing expectation. It's really simple.
It is, and that's the first time, before I've been away and I've had to run out of restaurants to get, signal, I didn't dare say anything, I felt really awkward. And I thought this time I've just got to be honest, I just have to tell them that it's gonna work. I did still do a little bit every day just to see all those jobs through, but it's not going to be as it was before. And they were all fine, they were all fine. Yeah.
The thing is, what you've got to remember, again, regardless of what your industry is or where you sit in there, it's, we're all adults and we all have lives away from recruitment. And I think it's not about being ashamed of that. If you've got to be off because your child's sick, or you are on holiday, or you're at a parents' evening, just be honest. It doesn't mean you're going to stop what you're doing. It just means that for this moment in time, I'm doing something else. You wouldn't apologise if you were sat with another client. It would be, I'm going to client meet. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I first set up my business, I had a bit of shame because I did only work part-time. I only worked 3 days a week. And it would be difficult on the 2 days that I was not working. I would get all the critical phone calls and I would say, I'm so sorry, I'm in a business meeting today. And I would lie about where I was. And then at some point, I actually think my friend grabbed my phone and pretended to be my PA. And she went, she's actually in, a playgroup. And I was like, what have you done? What have you done? And this MD thought it was hilarious.
Oh, right.
Yeah, thought it was hilarious. Like, well, just say that you're off with your kid. Don't worry about it. I think it was my child's birthday or something. I think it's about creating expectation. I think it's really important. So thank you for that. Now, I want to bring back into the conversation that a lot of people maybe sat working for a big corporate right now, or maybe what you did and they sort of moved away. So what do you think from a candidate's journey or a client's journey, what are the advantages of partnering an independent over working with somebody that works for a corporate?
Yeah, I think because you're not on a basic, you're not on a monthly salary, so their business, whether it's a candidate or a client, is your income. So they're going to go 110% to help you. Like, I just think the effort, the mileage there, it's so important to me, the business that I'm working on. It's not like I'm just registering candidates to hit my KPI or registering jobs for the same reason. It really matters. That business matters. And I think you've got the trust, the discretion, the effort, everything. It's just like a whole myriad of things that I just think with a large recruitment agency, the biggest thing for me was I hated the whole KPI culture. It was calls for sake of calls, jobs, registering candidates, CVs in, CVs sent out, all that kind of thing. You just will never get that from an independent. And I
think when you see sometimes sort of recruitment bashing posts on LinkedIn, which I just hate, but I think people do it for a bit of clickbait, but typically what you tend to see is that there's this perception that recruiters are doing it for their commission. They're just to hit their targets to get and I think that's where in a larger scale corporate business, and we're being a little bit disingenuous, but this has been both of our experiences because I was corporate back in the day, that it is a numbers machine and it doesn't matter what your outcome is. To them, all that matters is how many interviews you're arranging, how many sales calls you're doing. Whereas I think typically what you're saying is that if you're working for an independent, whether that's an owner manager like you, whether that's someone working for an SME, they're more focused on the outcome because that's more important to their reputation and that's more important to their profit margin, for example, as opposed to a massive big corporate beast.
Well, this is what I found, and there were scenarios I didn't like with candidates, whether they were being placed with clients I knew weren't nice, but they didn't matter because it was all about the fee. So things like that. So I am very candid and honest with all my candidates and clients. If I think it's not going to fit or I have a bad feeling about something, I'll just tell them. So I think there's a big trust thing there, and that's really important to me, like the trust.
Well, I think that plays very nicely into personal brand, doesn't it? Because your personal brand is obviously around you and around your ethics and around your value and the knowledge that you've got within
Yes.
the sector. And so I imagine that a large portion of your customer base come to you because they've obviously heard of your reputation, but they can see what you're doing. And I think that is so much harder to achieve for those that are working in big corporates, because you're swallowed up in a way. You don't can't split out another personal brand. And I do think there's a massive shift away from it. And I think, I'm not saying don't go and work for a corporate or don't work in a corporate. If you're listening to one now, or you're running one, I think you've got you do a tremendous job. But I think it must be much harder to create a personal brand if you're working for a big
Yeah, I don't think I had one. I just didn't understand. I didn't understand about personal brand. Actually, that's been one of my biggest journeys since setting up, and I just didn't get it. Like, I didn't know how to post on LinkedIn. I didn't really know what it meant. It's been such a massive learning curve. I was one of those awful recruiters who used to just post, like this job, if you want this job, apply, and that was it. That's as far as I thought.
Probably when tens of thousands of recruiters out there pre-2019. I don't think anyone was using it for sort of vulnerability or personal posts or anything like that. You'd never have dreamt of showing a picture of you in Thailand 3 years ago.
No. God, no. And now I think that I sometimes think, oh, should I think this is me. And it's a kind of Marmite thing, isn't it? People are like me or not. But what can I do? I'm just being honest. And this is how I am. So I just
So if you could go back to Bin 10 years ago, what advice would you give to Bin?
Oh God, set up and leave. Set up by yourself. My husband must say to me virtually every week, I wish you'd done this 10 years ago. And I'm just a much happier person, as well. I just, I was breaking my neck around school, nursery, everything, paying an obscene amount of money when I just should have just done it by myself. That's what I do. You can do it.
So maybe be more like Bin if you're listening to this. Yeah. and that's really interesting that's your advice. It's not anything else other than just go for it. Don't be just.
I know. Well, one of my biggest concerns, if I did ever think about it, was that people wouldn't pay my invoices. Bizarrely, that was one of the only reasons I thought, oh my God, they're not going to pay me. But actually, that's never happened. No. That's never happened. Yeah.
It comes down to trust and respect and reputation. Yeah. So I think that's critical. And I think that, obviously you're a small business, there might be people listening where you're thinking of scaling up or thinking of growing, but that I think that's why recruiters actually should run little mini businesses within the business that they work for. Be responsible for chasing invoices, be responsible for profit on your desk, understand what that looks like, even look at share scheme at the end of each financial year where it's an extra bonus, because you will then get recruiters that are so invested in the desk that they run for you that they're not going to want to set up and leave on their own, because they're getting all the benefit of working as part of a community.
That's really interesting, actually. I wonder how many recruitment agencies actually do that. I mean, you would know. I think it's changed so much. Sometimes when I look at your adverts, I'm so surprised at how everything's changed, like commission structures changed, benefits have changed. I think the last 2 years, I mean, I don't know,
COVID obviously was catastrophic in terms of the globe, and economically for a lot of people, it was a very negative thing. But I think for the recruitment industry itself, I think it transformed. I think it propelled us probably about a decade, which is incredible. And I think that there are still lots of people who are very, very behind the times with their mindset. But no, actually, a lot of companies don't do what I've just said. But I've always advised that as a rec to rec, if you recruit recruiters into your business, let them understand what the profit looks like. Because I think if they understand what their break-even point is on their desk, so why there's a threshold, if there's a threshold, but if there isn't, what do they need to achieve financially for your business to make you profit, which then would make them profit. And I think if more people had that mindset, which, you clearly have as a business owner, I have as a business owner, I think you'd get much better retention. I actually think you're then rewarding on profit, and you just get more commercially savvy recruiters,
But they need to learn, because I think you lose your identity and you become, part of just a number in a big corporate. But something like you've just said, that would just be, I think that'd be really good.
That plugs into the personal brand as well, because if you if you have a business, you're listening to this now, and there's 10 consultants, and that's all you ever want to be, and that's great. You know, I've got no ambitions to be massive, but you've got 10 recruiters, each with their own personal brand in your business, and that person is then running their business, their desk like a business. You're going to get so much more out of them than if you're just keeping hold of that P&L, not really letting them understand what the impact is if the invoice isn't paid on time. You know, there's a lot. So anyway, I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, but maybe I'm a bit naive with it. I don't know. So how are we going to make sparks fly? What's in the plan for you for the future?
I don't know, because I was thinking about it, and I was actually going to write a post about this, but I keep getting approached about people wanting to join me. Like I've had competitors contact me. I've had people say, I want to get into recruitment, can I join you? And I've resisted it. So I just don't know. I don't really want to be massive. I don't want to particularly grow. I don't know if I did a lot of this for work-life balance, and like, have I just got it nailed now? I just, I'm unsure.
Just do whatever makes you happy, and the universe will bring you what you want it to be. I might be very different to a lot of our listeners. I don't have any massive ambitions to be huge. I've always just wanted to be the best. So gorgeous team. You know, Shannon and myself work brilliantly. If somebody came along like me, Shannon and Laura, I probably would hire them because I'd be stupid not to. But I'm not going out there. Ironically, I'm a bit of an antithesis to what I actually do for a living, which is I'm very happy with my work-life balance. And that's what I love about your candor, that you can be who you want to be. You don't have to pretend something you're not, and that's wonderful. So you never know. You might find a future bin listening now who might drop you a message. And
maybe. But till then, I'm so happy just by myself. Like, as you said, I just want to be the best, and I've cut down the amount of clients I work with. You know, I just want to deliver to the ones that I'm working with, and I just want to be happy with that, and them to be happy. So
what a perfect way to finish a really enjoyable podcast, which has just flown by. So those listening have got some great values, particularly those who employ or are working parents. There's some brilliant tips in there, but also those who are thinking of maybe going on their own. Definitely connect to Bin. We'll make sure everybody can have your contact details. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lisa. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.